Hadrian. The emperor remembered as a philosopher, a traveler, a lover of art and architecture. He built walls across the frontiers of the Roman world. He designed villas and temples that still stand to this day. To many, he is a symbol of Rome at its height, powerful, cultured, wise. But behind this image lies a darker story. For Hadrian was also the emperor who presided over one of the bloodiest wars in antiquity. A conflict fought not for conquest, but for identity. A war that ended with the destruction of cities, the scattering of a people, and the deaths of more than 580,000 Jews. This is the story of the Bar Kokhba revolt, the last great Jewish rebellion against Rome, and the war of annihilation that followed. To understand the revolt of 132 CE, we must return 60 years earlier. In 66 CE, the people of Judea rose against Roman rule. What began as protests against taxation and corruption became full-scale war. For 4 years, Judea burned as Jewish rebels clashed with Rome's legions. In 70 CE, Jerusalem fell. The Romans, under Titus, destroyed the Second Temple, the center of Jewish worship. Flames consumed the sanctuary, sacred vessels were looted and carried to Rome. Tens of thousands were killed, thousands more enslaved. The destruction of the temple was more than military defeat. It was spiritual devastation. Without the temple, Judaism itself seemed broken. Yet even in the ashes, faith survived. Rabbinic Judaism began to take shape, sustaining Jewish identity through law, scripture, and community. But beneath the surface, resentment remained. The memory of the temple and the hope of restoration never faded. When Hadrian became emperor in 117 CE, the Jewish people wondered if things might change. Hadrian was no ordinary ruler. He admired Greek philosophy. He valued architecture, poetry, and law. Unlike many emperors, he was not obsessed with conquest. He sought to consolidate, to strengthen the empire by peace rather than endless expansion. But Hadrian's vision of peace was not built on tolerance. It was built on assimilation. He dreamed of a single Roman world, one culture, one system, one set of gods. When he looked upon Jerusalem, still scarred from the war of 70 CE, he did not see a city of mourning and faith. He saw an opportunity. He planned to rebuild Jerusalem as a Roman colony, Aelia Capitolina. Its streets would follow Roman design. Its temples would honor Roman gods. At the heart of the new city, on the site of the destroyed Jewish temple, Hadrian ordered a shrine to Jupiter. For Jews, this was intolerable. The holiest site of their faith turned into a monument for a foreign god. To make matters worse, Hadrian issued decrees against Jewish customs. Circumcision, the sign of the covenant with God, was outlawed. For Jews, this was not just repression. It was the attempted erasure of their very identity. In 132 CE, resistance exploded into full revolt. At its head was Simon Bar Kokhba. To his enemies, he was a rebel. To his followers, he was Bar Kokhba, the son of the star. The name came from ancient prophecy. A star shall rise out of Jacob, and a scepter shall rise out of Israel. Many believed Bar Kokhba was the Messiah. The great Rabbi Akiva publicly declared him the chosen one, the deliverer of Israel. Bar Kokhba was charismatic and ruthless. He inspired loyalty but demanded absolute obedience. He executed those suspected of treachery. But to his people, he was a symbol of hope. The revolt spread quickly. Roman garrisons were ambushed. Villages rose in rebellion. Coins were struck in Bar Kokhba's name, inscribed with "For the Freedom of Jerusalem." For the first time in decades, Jews held their land in their own hands. Underground networks of tunnels and hideouts were carved into the hills. The rebels struck with speed, then vanished into the earth. For a moment, Judea was free again. Rome was stunned. The legions stationed in Judea, hardened veterans, were defeated in battle after battle. Losses were heavy. Hadrian, alarmed, realized this was no mere rebellion. This was war. In his reports to the Senate, Hadrian omitted the customary phrase, "I and the legions are well." It was a silent admission of crisis. To crush the revolt, Hadrian summoned reinforcements from across the empire. At least 12 legions marched to Judea. This was one of the greatest mobilizations in Roman history. Perhaps 300,000 soldiers, nearly a quarter of Rome's entire army. Command was given to Sextus Julius Severus, a general of proven brilliance. Severus did not fight recklessly. He avoided pitched battles, where Bar Kokhba's guerrilla forces excelled. Instead, he waged war with patience and precision. Village by village, cave by cave, Severus closed his grip on Judea. The war dragged on year after year. Roman tactics were brutal. Entire towns were encircled and starved. Fortifications were destroyed. Fields were burned to deny food to the rebels. The Romans dug out tunnels, smoked them with fire, or collapsed them with engineering. Civilians, men, women, and children were trapped underground and suffocated. Bar Kokhba's men fought with desperate courage. They ambushed convoys, raided camps, and struck terror into Roman soldiers. But Rome's resources were inexhaustible. Slowly, relentlessly, the rebellion was strangled. In 135 CE, the end came. The last stronghold of the rebels was the fortress of Betar, southwest of Jerusalem. It was heavily fortified and filled with thousands of defenders and refugees. For months, Betar held out against Roman siege, but the walls could not withstand Rome forever. When the city fell, the slaughter was merciless. Bar Kokhba was killed, some say by the Romans, others by his own men, after accusations of betrayal. The inhabitants were massacred. Cassius Dio, the Roman historian, writes, 580,000 Jews were killed in battles, and countless others died of hunger, disease, and fire. 50 fortified towns and 985 villages were destroyed. Rivers of blood flowed through the streets of Betar. It was not just a defeat, it was annihilation. The war was over, but the consequences had only begun. Jerusalem was rebuilt as Aelia Capitolina. Jews were forbidden, on pain of death, from entering the city. Only once a year, on the anniversary of the temple's destruction, were they permitted to weep before its ruins. The province of Judea was renamed Syria Palestina. Hadrian sought to erase even the name of the Jewish homeland. Religious practices were outlawed. Circumcision was banned. Torah study was suppressed. The hope of rebuilding the temple was extinguished. Those who survived were sold into slavery or scattered into exile. The Jewish people began a diaspora that would last for centuries. Hadrian declared victory, but it was a victory built on ashes. For Rome, the Bar Kokhba revolt was one of the most costly wars it ever fought. The losses in manpower and resources were immense. The legions that survived were scarred, their honor wounded by the ferocity of their enemy. For the Jewish people, it was catastrophe. Never again would they control their land until modern times. The dream of Jerusalem, the hope of restoration, was carried only in prayer and scripture. Bar Kokhba, once hailed as Messiah, became a tragic figure. To some, a hero who fought against impossible odds. To others, a false Messiah who led his people to destruction. Hadrian, meanwhile, is remembered with ambivalence. He was the emperor who built walls and villas, who loved poetry and philosophy. But in Judea, his name is remembered in darkness as the man who tried to erase a people. 580,000 dead, cities leveled, an identity nearly extinguished. This was the true cost of Hadrian's empire. This was Rome's war of annihilation. History often remembers emperors for their monuments, the walls they built, the palaces they left behind. But history is also written in silence, in the ruins of destroyed cities, in the cries of the defeated. Hadrian wanted to be remembered as a philosopher, a builder, a man of peace. Instead, the Bar Kokhba revolt ensured that his legacy would forever be stained by blood. And in the memory of the Jewish people, the revolt of 132 to 136 CE remains not just a tragedy, but a warning, a reminder of the price of identity, the cost of faith, and the resilience of a people who, even in defeat, refused to disappear. Hadrian may have crushed Judea, but the Jewish people endured, and the shadow of 580,000 lives lost still falls across the pages of history.